for joining in our session today. Our session title is entitled Emerging Collaborative Preservation Project in Asia. And I'm Chow. This is Myra. We're both from Video Touch in Hong Kong. Yeah, thank you everyone again for joining in the sessions. Right, so similar to many cultural institutions who also collect media artifacts, Video Touch have had an early encounters with the challenge of preserving artwork with its full authenticities in a soon or already obsolete media format. So in our case, it was magnetic tapes such as VHS, DV tapes, video aids, etc., which we found no matter how perfect the storage conditions are, will eventually deteriorate in approximately the next 10 to 15 years. Also about the machine and the equipment, such as a VCR and DV player, all of these related equipments are in the obsolete mode already, which will only be more and more difficult for the maintenance and repairing attempt due to deterioration and without new production of repairing parts. We reckon most forms of media artworks are also facing the same immense challenge of the preservation, which already has attracted many focused research and policy of their attention within the art field for the past decades. For this, we want to ask, are there any alternative perspectives we could adopt that, apart from fixating on maintaining the condition of media object, that could be handled with constant effort by archival professionals and museum workers? How do we fellow art practitioners, such as curators, researchers, educators, or even artists themselves, could contribute to assist institutional documentation of the media art history? So by this question, this panel brings together three esteemed art professionals across different fields who have collaborated with us Video Touch before to share their experience from their past curated preservation project in the Asia Pacific regions. First of all, we have Chung, is a Hong Kong-based curator and researcher whose recent exhibition explored the dynamic between technologies, materiality, and human agency. He's also the curator at Video Touch and a lecturer at School of Creative Media Hong Kong. He will be sharing the Live Your Body virtual residency project on the Minecraft platform, which will cover topics in digital materiality and also online collaboration. Next up is Kwong, is an international media art curator, writer, producer, and also an educator based in Hong Kong. She's currently the program director for Microwave International New Media Arts Festival, and she will talk about her selected media art project and the challenges during the pandemic time. Lastly, we have Su Wei, is currently the researcher at the Tsinghua University Art Museum in China. He's an art writer, historian, and curator based in Beijing. As one of the curators of Video Touch Greater China collection, he will be sharing the experience of our collaborative preservation outreach in between Hong Kong and mainland China. So without further ado, we'll now pass on the time to the presenters. Let's welcome Joe.
Thank you. Let me share my screen first. Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for the introductions. And today we have quite limited time, so I'll just do a very short introductions about my projects. As mentioned by Video Touch team, that I'm a curator, writer, researcher, and educator focused on media arts. And then that's why I write, I research, I curate, I produce a lot. And then I've done like during the pandemic, these 2 to 3 years, I've produced and curate many different projects. Lots of them are actually online, some are not yet launched now. Like this one is actually postponed due to COVID, which is actually an online project, but together with offline events and exhibition as well, which are going to be launched in Shenzhen later. TBC at the moment, featuring Hong Kong media art and of course microwave edition and some media art performances and museum commissions. Well, today our focus will be on one of my key projects last year called Connecting the Dots. It's an online project which divided into 2 parts. First part is about a web magazine, and the second part is an online exhibitions. Why this would be a key project that I would like to, share today, because during pandemic, there are some open calls for online project, which we don't have together offline. But at the same time, actually, I teach a lot. At the same time, I realize that every time when I teach, no matter it's about curatorship or project management, arts, related to film and media, I have to I have to organize the teaching material every time based on Hong Kong media arts development. There's not much, information or books or publication or shows that I can adopt. And I've been working for Microwave for 16 years already. And then from the start, when I working for Microwave as a project manager and later to be the curator, my board member always remind me to do good archive of every single shows and then all the publications and shows. And then eventually I realized that maybe it's time for us to do something to archive the development of Hong Kong media arts. And then that's why I got an idea of connecting the dots. That is the key visuals. I can show you the website later on. And the whole idea is about, well, a quote from Steve Jobs long time ago. This is the quote. Once he said it in a Stanford graduation speech, he mentioned about you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future. You have to trust in something, your gut's destiny, life, karma, whatever. Well, connecting the dots is also like is a little game that we play when we were young. In Chinese, it's lian lian kai. It's fun, before you know what's going on, you saw the numbers. And then it's simply just connect the numbers. Then you see a fish or a car or something. Somehow I think it's just like what we are doing. Every time when I curate projects related to art and technology and science, people start asking a lot of questions. But until you met them up, they start knowing what's going on. How does that topic or all these artwork or creation relates to their daily life or our society? And then that's why I think of this, rationale to do a media art development archive for Hong Kong media arts developments. So we have connecting the dots. As I mentioned, connecting the dots got two parts. The first part is the web magazines, which this is the key visuals, the website visuals. We have different parts. For example, I interviewed Ellen Powell and Danny Yong both start working on art and technology since 80s in Hong Kong. And then also a lot of artists, curators, researchers, including Linda Lai, Kyle as well, different generation, and also artists from different generation working with different medium, including, internet, video, interactive design, etc. And then by these interviews, I write and also we edit into videos to put it up on the website so that people can, know more about what's going on all these years from the very beginning to the recent years. And then also the second part is about interviews. The second part is about the online exhibitions. I invite around 12 artworks, but it's already closed, the exhibition part. It includes video arts, game arts, installation online to offline, and then many different kind of projects showcase out there by different generations. Some crucial difficulties for that is some work, for example, like CD-ROM arts. I don't know, the age group of the people here, but then maybe a lot of people didn't hear about CD-ROM arts before. Even myself, when I start working since around early 2000s, a very limited chance that we can encounter CD-ROM artwork. And then this is one of the examples that I would like to talk more about today, which very difficult to archive the work because the media itself is already faded out. And then what we could do by that time is actually I seek advice from different programmers and also the artist groups to discuss how to mimic the experience of CD-ROM arts on websites. We did that eventually. And then by that time, I still have a very strong questions in my mind. This mimic experience is not exactly the artwork for sure because the medium changed, but we are trying to, mimic the form of it And then eventually, I find an online video like several weeks ago related to how curators preserve Namjoon Paik's electronic superhighway in the museums. And then from that video, actually, I learned a lot as well. Sometimes we have to look into the artwork to see if that work is, what is the essence or exactly the content or the form that we would like to preserve. And then as a curator and researcher, we have to understand the medium itself and also the context of the work, and then see which way is the best way that we can archive it. Of course, we can do video documentation, photo documentation, and write up. But at the same time, if there is any way new technology can help, we will incorporate that into it too. So that's the experience. And then after I finished connecting the project online, and then I realized that, well, that's only a starting point. In my mind, I should have like 2 to 3 more projects as a whole to integrate the whole thing. It's like a brief timeline only. So I collaborate with Hong Kong Asia Art Archive to provide a write-up. This is the screen capture. Oh, I got the QR code here, just in case you wanna scan and take a look of the article. And then in Asia Art Archive, I write an article about the listing. Also, I kind of propose kind of a list of readings and books and journals that they can acquire to provide more perspective about the concept of media archaeology and media arts development in Hong Kong. So that's a quick sharing about what I've done last year, focusing on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, for your kind sharing. Next up, let's welcome Chow to share.
Let me share my screen.
Sure. Yes.
Play. You see okay? Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I would love I would love to be with the ISEA community over there in Barcelona, but unfortunately we can't fly anywhere. It's just still in Hong Kong. So still, in any case, very happy to be here. I'm gonna try and keep it short. I want to give you a brief background of the Leave Your Body Virtual Ghetto Depot Residency on Minecraft. In a nutshell, this is a virtual environment hosted by VideoTouch, a media art organization in Hong Kong that is kind of like an alternative site, an alternative virtual site that we use as a virtual platform for experimental curatorial practice. And very brief background, like March 2020, I'm not going to really go into detail about this, but I think the background is quite important for this project. As most of you will be familiar, March 2020, most or part of the world went into lockdown. A lot of these major art and cultural institutions provided, like there was like a flux of online content kind of made accessible to the public when people are on lockdown, stay at home, like this. It's a great thing in terms of the access to the stuff. But at the time, I was thinking the engagement model was a bit 1990s. That I thought just because you put stuff online, that's not the most engaging method in terms of making the online content accessible. So June 2020, I was invited to, VideoTouch invited me to do online program, but the rebel me thinking, I'm not going to do what I just had my simple critique on the major institutions. And I thought of this idea of using a game to engage artists to do something creative. And at the time, some of you may recall, Animal Crossing was a huge hit in the gaming community. And I did a little play research. It's quite extensive play research, realizing actually Animal Crossing wasn't the most like, it doesn't offer the most freedom for like our creative practitioners to do something remotely creative. It takes like at least 2 weeks for someone to actually get familiar with the system, even though quite a lot of museums have adopted this game for their online program. So I went back to my roots, and when going back to when, I think 10, 12, 14 years ago when Minecraft first came out, I was a huge fan, realizing that Minecraft is a virtual world, virtual environment, providing the interface, easy to access interface, easy to pick up, a short learning curve for the players to actually essentially create anything they want with a toolbox, especially in the creative mode. And then through some baseline research, there's been precedents using Minecraft for art programming. This Livable Biennial 2016 was the project that I think commissioned 2 artworks in on Minecraft. This is a good reference, I would say, both in terms of like it's a good precedence, but also it's a on the other hand a good reference kind of that sets what I'm going to tell you apart. Like instead of like what it's been done for Livable Biennial, commissioning artists to create artworks on Minecraft, I wanted to actually build a site for the artists to respond to. Especially I was talking about lockdown, like people were like kind of stuck at home. I wanted to give them the at least a level of the sense of the site for the audience. So I ended up working with the Minecraft architect that we've been working on this Minecraft platform since the first edition, Leo. Recreated a virtual kettle depot, which is where Video Touch is based, and also a kettle depot as a cultural heritage site in Hong Kong, now occupied by many art organizations. So we have the site at this point, and it's only a site, it doesn't make the program. And then at the time, I was really curious about Exquisite Corpse, this art making format. And for those who are not familiar with Exquisite Corpse, it's like essentially with this painting as an example, 3 artists came together, putting something onto the canvas, responding to what's been done previously by the previous artists. I wanted to do that on Minecraft. So I invited 4 art practitioners, artist curators in Hong Kong from all walks of life, like kind of, for example, Peter Nelson as a media artist, Chung Chung with a less technical, I wouldn't call her media artist, a contemporary artist, but with a social media presence. And for example, Kwong, who's an iconic contemporary artist in Hong Kong, and also who has for decades his studio on the kettle depot, or the physical kettle depot artist village. So I invited 4 artists doing Exquisite Corpse on Minecraft, kind of back-to-back week-long residency, and with each artist in kind of each participant responding to the site itself and also responding to what's been done by previous artists. And I won't go into detail of each artwork, but just as an example, Peter Nelson put is like the entire virtual site of Kettle Depot into this glass vitrine, putting imagine the manual labor of putting the glass blocks around and over Kettle Depot. So through this exercise of the week-long residency by different artists, they respond to each other, actually accomplishing, I would say, what I hope is the 21st century version of Exquisite Corpse. As part of dissemination, after the week-long residency, I did a play dates with each participant and engaging them to talk about their experience throughout their virtual residency, and also talk about what they've done throughout. We had a blast, and we ended up having YouTube clips, just like kind of, even though it's like a half an hour play date, we put it together like about 3 to 5 minutes by our lovely video touch team. And it was so much fun. And with Mugging Chung as an example, I would say she didn't really actually do much within her week-long residency, but part of the deliverables of the entire residency, I would say, is the play date itself. And it was just so much fun talking to her about her experience. And the video itself, I would say, is a major deliverable. So that was the first edition. And like I said, Leave Your Body is an experimental curatorial platform for experiments. So we've done 6 editions since then. And for each edition, we try to use a different format. Like the first edition, we use Exquisite Corpse. And as we move further into the different editions, like this one, we presented the virtual sites in an art fair in Hong Kong in VR. For the second edition, we invited, in collaboration with Video Club in Brighton, in the UK, instead of Exquisite Corpse, this week-long residency, we put 2 artists together, Angela Su and Clifford Sash, occupying the virtual sites for a month at the same time. So that they will have actually a chance to, instead of responding to each other in the format of Exquisite Corpse, they respond to each other, like they come across each other on the same sites. Taipei Contemporary Arts Center for the 3rd edition, and we invited back a Peter Nelson for the 4th edition. At the time, Peter Nelson had a solo exhibition at the physical sites in our Video Touches exhibition space, showcasing these machine learning generated trees, air quotes. And as kind of on the side, we also invited him to put these machine learning generated trees, as opposed to, the physical exhibition, trees in prints or paintings. We wanted the trees as a 3D model to be put in these virtual sites in the Minecraft version as well. And the 5th edition, in collaboration with British Council in Hong Kong, we invited Gary Woodley to make a site-specific installation, essentially expanding the sites beyond Kettle Depot and moving on to 13 streets, a low-income residential area in Hong Kong, juxtaposing another lower-income sites in North London, kind of connecting the 2 sites with his site-specific installation. And the 6th edition, very recently, and for another collaboration with Video Club in Brighton, in a similar format as what we've done with Clifford Sash and Angela Su. I'm not going to go into detail. I think I'm overrun like for a couple of minutes. We can talk more about it in our conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, lastly but not least, let's welcome Su-Wai to kindly share with us.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Good. You can see me now, right? Okay, then. Thank you, John and Myra, for organizing this. And also thank you, Video Touch, for inviting me to be part of this panel. My name is Su-Wai. Actually, I'm a curator and a art history researcher based in Beijing. So, a little bit about my background. Actually, my work in recent years somehow focuses on reconstructing and the narrative of contemporary Chinese art history, and explores the roots of the legitimacy and rupture of contemporary Chinese art in a global context. So pivotal to my work is that the attempt to take the post-1949 as the key in understanding artistic production in a contemporary situation. And in so doing, I somehow seek to redefine the stance and possibilities of art in nowadays China. So I engage in a somehow anti-establishment critical practice by mapping the limits, contextual clues, and unconscious energies of the post-1949 art production. So a little bit about my background, because it's also related to what I'm going to introduce in my talk. So I actually wrote down what I'm going to say, so I will just read it out. So beginning in 2016, I was commissioned by VideoTouch to curate a long-term archival project in order to expand the archival collection of video art about mainland China. So the genesis of this project was the exhibition No References, a revisit of video and new media art history in Hong Kong since 1986, that I co-curated together with Kwong, the chairman of VideoTouch. So this exhibition is a retrospective that builds on the history of VideoTouch as an institution and re-examines the birth and development of new media art, including video, in Hong Kong. So new media art is a field of seminal importance in the contemporary art landscape of Hong Kong, and a major factor that has situated local contemporary art in Hong Kong within the globalized contemporary art world. So this exhibition took place in 2016 at a time when the political situation in Hong Kong was undergoing a dramatic transformation. At the moment, everything that Hong Kong suffered or was suffering was in fact linked or can be linked to the history of this particular modern society, the history of its political subjectivity. Therefore, as an outsider, I'm from Beijing, I'm from mainland China. As an outsider being in Hong Kong at that time, I also wanted to somehow find the formation of the subjectivity of Hong Kong contemporary art from Hong Kong, actually, from the perspective of art. So reviewing the history of Hong Kong art itself, especially analyzing the dynamics of Hong Kong contemporary art, the self-awareness formed in its history, and the dilemmas it faces, and so on, became the core issue of this exhibition. So I'm very thankful at the time, to VideoTouch, and especially to Alan Powell, Phoebe, Chung, for their tremendous trust and support on this research-based exhibition. We also used a lot of material from the VMAC archive. VMAC is actually a hard disk that somehow contains, like more than thousands of video works files from many regions of the world. So actually, when I opened that hard drive for the first time, the afternoon was truly unforgettable, because through these digital files, I was able to re-enter re-enter a period of history that was about to be obliterated. So to be honest, the part of this archival collection that was about Hong Kong actually contained many artists, many works of artists that are not very well known today. So many of them also worked in a low profile way. So especially in a place like Hong Kong, with a strong art commercial climate and expensive studio rents. So their experimental pioneering works did not receive the attention it deserved. So it is precisely this part of the archive, the spirit of self-organization, of this undergroundness and avant-garde appeals to me. I mean, globalization or not, these factors are the most fundamental and principled things in contemporary art. So through this exhibition, No References, I was introduced to VideoTouch's archival collection project. So the following year, Phoebe reached out to me, about curating a collection for VMAC on video art in mainland China. So I was very happy to accept this commission. For me personally, it was also a very big challenge actually. So because I have been thinking actually, how do you curate such a collection for an institution that exists outside of mainland China, and how do you establish the criteria for selecting works? So what kind of a message does the collection need to send to the art world? Or even, on a very institutional level, how to complete, the formalities and the contracts for the collection, which is after all, a completely different place for two social systems. In the 1980s, video art emerged as a new medium in mainland China and played an important role in the radical underground and experimentalist atmosphere of the 1990s. On the one hand, video art in mainland China has been strongly marked by conceptual experimentation from the beginning, influenced by post-1970s video art in Europe and the United States, while at the same time inheriting to some extent a series of unfinished practices that began in the Chinese art world after the so-called 85 New Wave. Many artists who pick up video equipment for the first time attempted to explore it in a way that was devoid of meaning and personality. This is what is commonly understood as video art in China. So in fact, this de-meaningful, depersonalized approach was not unique to video art in mainland China, but was directly related to many of the discussions that were taking place within the Chinese art world at that time. So this included reflections on the 85 New Wave, an art movement that mixed modern, contemporary, grand narrative, decontextualization, and many other contradictory elements. So they also included some of the issues that had been the focus of attention within the art academies in mainland China, but this discussion had been controversial due to the rise of the new art in the 1980s, such as what is the form of art, what is the unique language of art, and what is the relationship between the artist and the artistic expression. It was in this context, for example, that Zhang Peili's earliest video artworks, with which we are very familiar actually, were born. Zhang himself, he was also an important participant in the 95 New Wave. In his work Hygiene No. 3, he uses a camera to record the process of repeatedly scrubbing a rooster with his hands. In fact, we can even consider this work as a case of conceptual art. By selecting an everyday object, the rooster, and repeatedly scrubbing it, the artist shatters the everydayness of the scene and conveys a kind of a break and a contradict with everyday reality. On the other hand, there's also a group of artists who are influenced by the language of the camera in pioneering cinema and who remain attentive to the often obscured, absurdly complex social reality of China. They pick up the camera and create on the level of documenting and reflecting on the social conditions of China. So I would call this the second path of the Chinese video art. This path is clearly different from the conceptual video creation that artists like Zhang Peili engage in, and it is commonly called moving images. The artist Zhao Liang, for example, born 1969, is an artist as well as a film director. In many of his works, it is difficult to distinguish the line between video and moving images. One example is the work for youth, you can see here, a short work that records a topless youth breaking into a Huchong area to be demolished, venting his anger with bricks. The camera language is both documentary and pioneering because although this pioneering nature does not seem to be entirely self-conscious, this work shows the prevalence of violence in Chinese society, whether from the government or from individuals. But its documentary nature is also constituted by the shaky camera, the slightly uncanny colors of the night shots, and the conceptual language that lacks narrative. So I think it is not very necessary to distinguish between video and moving images in mainland China for two reasons. Firstly, because the new psychological impact and the new creative motivation brought by the new medium video has a time limit, and this time limit is about 15 years. So the anxiety of the medium was quickly replaced by the anxiety of the art industry around 2005, because before a clear distinction could be made between what is video and what is moving images in the contemporary art world in China. The second reason is that the Chinese artists of the 1990s who work with video cameras, whether conceptual or documentary, or exploring the potential of this new media in response to some essential issues of art production itself, such as the relationship between art and reality, which is addressed in both conceptual video and documentary works. Or they also deal with social problems, such as the general lack of support for artistic infrastructure, picking up a camera. It's kind of a way of self-organization at the time during the 1990s. So that means both video art and moving images have to deal with the same issues, whether it is art issue or social issues that is related to art. So, and this is often overlooked. So these two paths of video practice from the premise of our review of video art in mainland China. So I try to open up the narrow definition of video art and place it in the recent history of Chinese contemporary art to broaden its boundaries. So this archive or collection project focuses on the evolution of the two paths. On the one hand, we look at the new perspectives and approaches that video as a new medium has injected into art practice in mainland China. At the same time, we also included the work of new generation of artists from the last decade, in whose video works, media anxiety is gradually evolving into a more multi-dimensional exploration. So the dialogue between the works of the old and new generations of Chinese artists becomes the most noteworthy part of this collection. Especially for the new generation of artists, it is becoming an increasingly pressing issue of recognize their own position, to describe the urgency that arises from the creation process itself, and to bring up in a self-reflectively fashion the issue of reality where artistic creation is concerned in a more homogenized global art world and an increasingly nihilistic Chinese art industry. So then about the new generation of artists, I think it's very hard to completely sort out a clear path because diversity is indeed a primary characteristic. But I think there are also, there are also some clues that can be presented for discussion. For example, in artist Li Ran's works, born 1986, he often plays himself as a character, such as a voiceover artist, a host, a patient, and so on, and intimates these characters. In his work, Beyond Geography, he plays the role of a wilderness adventure host, such as this famous Discovery Channel, completing an adventure program and a fake set that is intentionally set up so that people can recognize it. His mouses the kind of seductive narration that hosts need to say to lead viewers, to lead us layer by layer into the unknown, just as adventure programs tend to make up a story and makes viewers think the story is true. He also encountered a group of local primitive men and interacted with them. So the entire work is metaphorical, and we can see in it his derision of performativity in the art industry and the awkwardness of a certain dominant discourse when it encounters the other. This is actually the exhibition view of this video installation. Another work is the art from the artist Li Liao, born also 1984. His work Single Bed No. 2 Playground. In the downtown area in Shenzhen, a southern city that is connected to Hong Kong, Li Liao cleaned out a single bed area of the ground and slept on it until he woke up naturally or ended up with an unexpected interruption. The performance was done 4 times at the intersection of Kwong pedestrian street, inside an ATM room in a bank, by the lake and in a neighborhood playground. This performance work does not use the video medium as the main fulcrum, but discusses the boundaries of public space in mainland China and people's perceptions of it. However, performativity itself becomes an implicit issue of the work, as the artist seems to remind the audience that my performance is just a performance and it will not have much impact on this absurd public space. So I think that's all I can say, because 2020 and 2022 is a period when mainland China is in the shadow of the pandemic and those crises in the art world in China that emerged a decade ago are more clearly exposed during these 2 or 3 years. Mainland China seems to have been slowly excluded from the global contemporary art scene. What is the new urgency requires us also to make a timely reflection, starting from the internal problems of art to find a way out of today's predicament. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for all the presenters' inspiring and informative sharings. So because our time is almost up, do any one of you have any questions about the presentation? Please feel free to put in the chat box or let us know. Yeah.
Please put it in the questions and answer area if you're online. And do we have any quick questions from the audience or our remote participants from Asia? I have a question back here.
Yes, we have 2 questions for Kyle.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm turning on the microphone. Okay, I have a question for Su Wai. I recognize some of the images that you showed because they are also in the ISEA Archives. About 10 years ago, we had a proposal to hold ISEA in China, and the bids did not make it because there were some competing bids that were maybe better, but also the ISEA board had a problem with the fact that it seems any improvisation would not be possible, like last minute changes in the program and things like that. And maybe you have no opinion about this, but I would like to ask you, what do you think of the possibility to hold an ISEA in China?
To hold what? Sorry, the last sentence.
This is the International Symposium on Electronic Art, where you are presenting today. My question was, you're aware of the ISEA Symposium, right?
Sorry, I can't hear you very clearly. Can you repeat it for me, because this is speak a bit far away from the. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is much better. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, maybe this is more understandable. My question was, there was a bid to hold the symposium, the International Symposium on Electronic Art, to hold it in China. We had that bid about 10 years ago, and it was not accepted because we felt there was no room for improvisation and last minute changes. And those are typical for ISEA. Things change until the last moment. My question was, and maybe you're not able or willing to have an opinion about this, but what do you think are the chances to hold an ISEA in China these days?
I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, there's still. I know the censorship is very strict, and I know the public space is getting absurd now. But still, I mean, there's still, gaps between what the authorities require and what and the contemporary art world. I think there's still many possibility to do that. You only have to find a simple, institution for it, not official ones, but private museums or alternative spaces. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's a very good answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Well, let's hope in the future there will be changes in that.
If we still have time, there are also 2 questions in the chat box directing to Chow. Do we still have time for this? Chow, can you see the
Very quick responses because we have another session directly after. Thank
Chow,
you.
can you see the questions? If not, I can read it out for you. You have muted your mic. You have muted. You're muted.
Go ahead and read out the question and answer it.
In your experience with Minecraft as a platform for collaboration, did you feel constrained by its features? Would you prefer having a similar environment developed, blah, 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 blah? Right. One of the really interesting things that came up in the play dates, when I was talking about the play dates after the week-long residency with the participants, was that the artists appreciated the sites to respond to, like the virtual sites Kettle Depot, a virtual Kettle Depot, mainly because of the constraints. Like if it's just completely just starting from just a void, the artist wouldn't know what to do. That especially actually Chung mentioned that. And as a base for inspiration, I would say the virtual site itself is quite important. That's one of the main things. But when I found out the Liverpool Biennial 2016, when they commissioned 2 artworks, that's the one that is just, I think that's the premise for the artists commissioning 2 artworks on Minecraft, and they build whatever they want. That wasn't I wanted to set the program apart from that. And at the same time, I think because of the sites, because of the virtual sites being virtual Kettle Depot, like there's that materiality of the site carried forward or kind of in connection to the physical sites and the virtual sites hosted by VideoTouch. I think it's quite important for to have that site as inspiration for artists to respond to. So I think that sense of constraints is a healthy relationship. Only in this case. Do we have time for the second question? Well, maybe very quickly. Materiality of media arts, especially in archiving. I think in a nutshell, for the Leave Your Body platform, like I said many times, it's for experiments, it's for curatorial experiments, and it by design raises more questions than providing answers in that sense. So and the kind of questions that may be relevant to your question, kind of derived from Leave Your Body, I would say would be kind of the materiality in Leave Your Body exists on many levels. Like I can't isolate any individual artworks contributed by the artist. Like I said, the artworks were created responding to the site itself. Like when I am to archive these individual artworks, I will have to archive the entire site. But on another level, the artworks are by individual artists, that they deserve their own identity. This is the kind of, when I said like Leave Your Body raises more questions than providing answers. To end on the note, I suppose this, in our business, like asking the right questions is very important.
Okay, thank you very much.